Hey everybody, welcome to another Founder Series video from the Spark100 Awards put on by DuploCloud and Sassbrass. I'm so grateful to be joined today by Jackie Schafer, CEO of Clearbrief. Jacqueline, Jack, it's so wonderful to have you on today's episode. Would you mind just introducing yourself and Clearbrief?
Sure. So I'm Clearbrief's founder and CEO. I'm actually a career litigator. I started out in big law, spent a lot of my career in government, and I was in-house counsel before I founded the company in 2020. Clearbrief, we are a Microsoft Word add-in that's used by big law, courts, government agencies to find facts and surface evidence during the writing process, and then keep that evidence visible even when they share and file their pleading with the court.
I love it. I think that there has been so many great advancements in legal tech. I think this market is booming in a big way. So it's so exciting to have a founder in this space on today's episode. Would you mind maybe sharing something that's been, that's some people might find surprising or little known fact about your startup?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things that we're working on right now is getting all participants in a typical litigation or an arbitration to use Clearbrief. So people think of like judges and arbitrators as
Sure.
being extremely conservative, very worried about AI. That is true, but they are already using AI. Clearbrief is already used by, state Supreme Courts, state appellate courts, and we're an official partner of the American Arbitration Association. And we're really seeing those network effects happen where the large law firms who are in front of that arbitrator are using Clearbrief so that they can identify the best facts, keep that visible for the arbitrator, and then that arbitrator is also using AI. So it's really cool to see how getting all the parties involved is really helping with identifying the most important facts to get to a more fair outcome.
Yeah, I love that. I think the legal space is one that is really poised to use AI really across all sides. So it's not a big surprise that there's been so many successful companies entering into this space. Talk to me a little bit about your journey. You'd obviously been working as a lawyer for a long time. What was that like sort of aha moment that compelled you to sort of jump out of your old career and into entrepreneurship to start Clearbrief?
Yeah, so before I launched the company, I was working as in-house counsel advising a massive, $3 billion national nonprofit that was trying to bring data science to child welfare agencies and courts. And so I was advising as a lawyer those teams. And so I started learning more about data science and AI and really nerding out about it. I ended up writing a law review article, but it was in particular, I had been working on a pro bono case, or I was representing a mother and her toddler in an asylum case where if we lost, they would be sent back to their home country and likely murdered. It was really scary, high stakes situation. And we got to this final hearing where I'd written a 50-page brief trying to weave together the evidence that we had. And I felt like immediately when I walked in, the judge was very biased, really against myself and my client, just from what he was saying, his demeanor. And I'm like, oh God, we're going to lose. But there was a moment where I pointed the judge to some of the documents that I had cited to, right? So in legal pleadings, every single sentence has to have a citation back to the evidence. And I was able to kind of draw his attention to that source document. And he read that and it changed his mind. And he believed my client, and ultimately we won. It was an amazing day. And it really showed me the power of being able to surface that underlying evidence to the decision maker. And that gave me a lot of conviction when starting the company that if we can find a way to use AI to identify all those, citations and reference documents and make it really simple to keep the evidence visible, then that could have an impact in the real world.
That is incredible. I mean, you're talking about saving lives through the legal system. It's amazing. We don't often hear aha moments like that from founders. And certainly, we don't hear about that in their past lives. So first and foremost, I just think that is absolutely fantastic. And what better reason is there to start a company than to sort of replicate results like that? That is incredible.
Thank you so much. And what's cool actually is now that we've grown, we're used by the largest global law firms. We have more and more lawyers who are interested in doing pro bono cases.
Sure.
And this can actually present a really nice alignment where the law firm, is excited about using Clearbrief on of course, their for-profit cases that make the money, but a lot of law firms have really important pro bono programs where that's one of the things why people choose a certain law firm over another in law school. So we can help them actually do this kind of work at scale. So we've been doing some really interesting partnerships with Microsoft that they've talked about. Their in-house legal team has been working with us to try to scale the ability to do pro bono legal work with
Mm-hmm.
AI.
Yeah, it just seems like what Clearbrief provides is such an efficiency gain for people that it gives them the space and the time to actually work efficiently on court cases that they probably really, really care about. And that have really really meaningful impacts on people. So as a part of your mission, I just find that so overwhelming and fascinating, and also just heartwarming.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's great. I mean, we spend most of our time, focused on the maybe not as hardworking, just sort of day in and day out
Sure, yeah.
slog of litigation and doing internal investigations and that sort of thing. So it's really nice to also be able to kind of give lawyers another reason to experiment with new technology.
Love that. Love that. So outside of the legal system, but sort of in macro, we're starting to hear a lot about things like AI fatigue with tools that aren't actually helping people. Obviously, that doesn't seem to be the case here at Clearbrief. But talk a little bit, because I know a large part of our audience are AI founders and entrepreneurs. Like, how are you overcoming this concept of AI fatigue?
Yeah, so we've been putting a ton of resources into how we train and onboard.
Mm-hmm.
And we hired an amazing, head of user experience. And so we're doing a lot of different, I think, very creative efforts to not just, follow the kind of standard SaaS playbook and have everything be very like impersonal. And we're really leaning into a personalized, almost quirky sort of experience when you use Clearbrief, and also really reminding people of the human help that's available to help them
Mm-hmm.
onboard. And again, when it comes to our particular user base, which are lawyers, judges, they're doing the most high stakes, critical cases. There's just millions of dollars at stake in their work. So asking them, hey, try this new AI tool on something, they're not going to be as receptive unless they feel like they really have support
Yeah.
and you'll be there with them on the day of filing. Clearbrief also does a number of these sort of administrative tasks, like
Mm.
instantly generate your table of authorities, instantly create your exhibits, instantly make a hyperlinked version of that pleading. I think, yeah, that's really how we're approaching it, is try to make it as human feeling and enticing to work with our team when you're thinking about a project that could really benefit from efficiency and you're under a tight time crunch. That's actually the perfect time to use an AI tool.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. As a marketer, I know all about that. So, although my stakes are always relatively lower, one of the things that I think helps really successful AI businesses is there's a lot of specificity in the use cases around their product. I often find that when there are sort of tools that are a little bit ambiguous, you can kind of do anything that you want with it. Oftentimes that creates a lot of apprehension from the user because they're like, oh, there's this big, powerful tool. Where do I get started? As you think about your business and your users, is that something that you consider? And maybe we can talk about some of those specific use cases.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the opinionated positions that we've taken, that I've taken as a product leader, is that our product doesn't involve prompting,
Mm,
because I just heard from so many attorneys at how frustrating that experience is when
sure.
they're trying to get help from an AI tool and it's like you have to keep just revising and it's like, okay, I'll just do it myself at this point. It's this is such a
Yeah.
frustrating experience.
Yeah.
So we really, because we've been working with litigators now for about over 5 years, we now have identified, we know exactly what they want to do, so we don't need prompts. So we have, our prompting happens behind the scenes, and there's certain aspects of it that we surface so they can customize things. But our platform, we just did a recent UI overhaul, and it's really laid out in terms of the workflow that lawyers do, from blank page to writing, getting review from their colleagues, all the way to filing the document. So they
Mm,
can figure out which stage of that writing process they're in and select the right tool. It's not designed with prompting. It is very specific about what you can do. Um, and yeah, we're hearing and seeing the results in terms of our usage data that it's really hitting the spot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'd love to hear that. I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag here, but I just heard that you guys secured like a huge partnership this month that's going to transform the legal industry. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Depends which partnership you're talking about. But we did recently just announce a couple of weeks ago that we are official partners with the American Arbitration Association.
Wow.
And so that is, the leading sort of arbitration organization where disputes that are very high dollar, very, confidential are resolved. And so not only will Clearbrief be used by all 5,500 and plus arbitrators, they have the ability to use Clearbrief as they work and they review the evidence, but also the parties to the case are going to be offered and encouraged to use Clearbrief every single time they have an arbitration matter. So this is a great opportunity for us to show how it can be so efficient when everyone in the case is keeping that evidence visible. That there's no ability to sort of hide behind gesturing broadly to facts. With Clearbrief, it's in Microsoft Word. When you reference like see page 7 of deposition transcript, it'll boom pop that up inside Microsoft Word as you're reading side by side. And that's just one of the ways that the tool helps keep the facts visible, help you create timelines and chronologies. We actually hold a patent on our AI timeline tool that uses generative AI to organize hundreds of thousands of pages into an organized chronology. So those are just some of the ways that, arbitrators and parties to an arbitration will now be able to use generative AI.
That's amazing. It feels like a real paradigm shift for the legal sort of category as a whole.
Yeah, it is really exciting because I mentioned, we have been working with judges for a couple of years, but they are extremely reticent to like talk about that.
Of course.
Although I think it's something that's should be really admired. Judges should be using helpful technology. They should be having access to the tools that the parties have access to. But just, politically, sometimes judges are scared to mention that they are using technology. So it really means a lot to have such a important organization, like we call them the AAA in legal, come out and say, look, our arbitrators are tech forward. They are using the most cutting edge technology, and it's Clearbrief. We've chosen Clearbrief. We worked with them for months and had, arbitrators in the platform who resoundingly said, this is making a difference to my work.
That is amazing. Talk about a raving endorsement from such an important organization. My goodness. I want to switch gears here a little bit. I want to talk about, kind of your funding story and your funding journey. Obviously, a lot of our listeners are seed to, Series B organizations that are, considering their next round of funding. Let's go all the way back to the beginning and talk about like how you secured initial funding for Clearbrief.
Yeah, and so I did not come from, a background with any knowledge of VC. Like I said, I was a lawyer, not on the, transactional side of anything. So everything I learned, I had to just learn from friends and mentors. And so I started out by just really focusing on traction and initially, sort of bootstrapping Clearbrief for about 9 months, actually, before we had any capital come in. Started with getting some angel investor capital. And then ultimately just was able to show more and more traction and raise a seed round in 2021. And then, I've been maybe taking a slightly different approach than a lot of founders where my goal hasn't always been to just raise as much capital as I possibly could. I really wanted to make sure that it takes time and it takes years of R&D to build a really, really amazing product. And so I wanted to make sure we had the time working with customers. We were able to build a repeatable sales process. We were able to, scale. So I did take in some additional capital last year. We saw incredible year-over-year growth. So we may be, looking to do an additional round of funding this year, but, things are going super, super well. And just one thing to remember is you don't have to just do what everyone else is doing. There's been a lot of news, especially in legal tech, about these just like insane, massive funding rounds. And it can be scary for those founders that they have very few customers. They have honestly very few data points to know if what they're doing is truly hitting the mark. So don't always be looking over your shoulder to see what other companies are doing. Really try to, as much hard as it is, try to focus on what's right for you, for you personally, your team, in terms of what you want out of, the business.
I love that. I love a differentiated path to success. I think that, people, to your point, often get very consumed with what their peers are doing and think that they need to do that exactly. But every business and every founder is different. And we love hearing about, sort of differentiated founding stories and capital raising stories. Talk a little bit about your decision to sort of hold back against that, right? Like, because my guess would be, given, the type of success that you're having, the partnerships that you have with the AAA and Microsoft, like, there's probably a lot of people coming inbound to you offering to be a part of your next round of funding.
Yeah, I think we are getting a ton of inbound, which is great.
Yeah.
I just think the most important thing that I want to focus on is, getting to a place where we don't need future rounds of venture
Mm.
capital. We can, we're profitable. We can focus on what matters most. So, which is customers and having the funding per se come from your customer base. So, I would just say that you will not go wrong by being sort of obsessive about focusing on your customers, focusing on what they will pay for,
Hmm.
focusing on sort of the pain points that they may not be telling you, but that you observe and hear about. That's going to be a really great use of your time, and it's for most people, it is a necessary evil that you have to spend a fair amount of time on fundraising.
Yeah.
Um, so I think just you have to sort of balance your time off, and you'll get a better ROI from focusing on the product and sales than
Yeah.
from fundraising.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your sales process. So do you guys do a PLG process where, people can get directly into the product and try it out for a period of time, or there's a free version that they can upgrade to a professional or premium version? Or is it more of like a sales-led process where, people come inbound and you have sales reps that follow up with them?
Yeah, so we are a little bit different, I think, than other legal tech companies in that I have sort of resisted also that piece of advice, which I do think, can make sense, which is just focus on one target customer, because our product itself is so geared towards litigation and litigation users. And because I knew we wanted to go after those network effects of, well, if one person in the case is using it, the other side sees that and they're going to want to use it too. And the judge is using it and everyone, so we sell to the smallest solo firms all the way to the literal largest global law firms in the world. We're used internationally as well in Ireland, the UK, Canada, and other countries. And we're also used by in-house teams like Microsoft, I mentioned.
Yeah.
We have different sales cycles for, the larger the entity. We do have a wonderful sales team. We do have a product-led aspect as well, where a solo firm can discover Clearbrief, go on to the Microsoft App Source store, install it, and start using it. That's been a great, source of business for us.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I know we're starting to get short on time here, but maybe share with the audience some, maybe it doesn't have to be the best piece of advice, but maybe the most memorable advice that, some of your mentors gave you, because obviously, coming from a different world into a world of entrepreneurship, you said earlier, you leaned into mentors to help you through that process. So, what's some of that advice, and what would you share with the audience?
Yeah. And so I guess one of the maybe the meta things I'll say about advice is that you have to really be living the problem in order to be open to the advice. There's so much startup advice that's so great, and you hear it early on and you're just like, whatever, like you don't really listen to it. And it's not until, you actually experience the problem yourself. And oftentimes the best advice is just suffering through and learning. That's really how, I've learned most of my lessons, to be honest, is it's not that I haven't gotten great advice. It's just like, you're not always ready to listen to it until
Sure.
you're in the thick of it, solving that specific problem. Okay, so just be open to that and aware of that phenomenon is probably my best piece of advice. And then I think another sort of classic evergreen piece of advice that you really can't hear enough is that you need to be meeting with customers really regularly as the CEO. And
Hmm.
it's not something that you really want to get too far away from, especially if you're leading the product, especially if you're leading sales. You need to have those nuggets of those anecdotes and those stories really present in your mind. You need to be sitting in user sessions and seeing people interact with your product. Hearing that, third hand from your team is just not the same. And so
Yeah.
even as we've grown and scaled, I am still very regularly keeping my calendar, peppered with those types of conversations. Really important.
Great advice. Great advice. Well, Jacqueline Schafer, CEO of Clearbrief, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on being a part of the Spark100. And thank you so much for sitting down to chat with me and share your journey of both yourself and the business of Clearbrief. If folks want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Find me on LinkedIn. Jacqueline Schafer, Clearbrief on LinkedIn. I post a lot on LinkedIn, and yeah, I love having conversations with folks. So thank you so
I
much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Best of luck. Clearbrief is the company. Jacqueline Schafer is the CEO. Thank you guys. Stay tuned for our next episode.